Hi, I'm Christine with Holistic Homes, and I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how we are completely changing the way new construction is done. But before we get into that, I want to share with you just some of the big glaring issues that you've probably even experienced yourself. So first, I want to share with you defects, and this is showing a prevalence and really an uptick in construction defect claims. There's far more than just what's shown here because not all issues are actually submitted as claims. So what is the problem? Why are construction defects an issue? And really the root cause is that a faulty home can lead to a prevalence of issues. One being mold. We've got plumbing leaks that can then lead to mold and water damage. Faulty windows, contaminated air. All of this can be a result of defects and poor construction. So what's causing the rise in defects? Why are we having such an issue with homes being built watertight and healthy? According to one report, there is a prevalence of just poor workmanship. So 40% workmanship, and also next would be the design, basically the plans, and then third would be building defects. So poor quality construction, poorly designed homes, and then defects of the building materials. So that's over 78% are a result of those three combined. And then where are the defects actually happening? Well, again, getting into the top three here, that would be the envelope. Roofing is included in that, but the envelope or enclosure, which would be the walls, the exterior construction, the roof, and then the mechanical system. So again, making up over 66% of the defects are happening within the enclosure and the mechanical system, the really big elements to get right. And so you might be thinking, aren't building defects and mold, aren't all of these obvious? And the answer is no. Many new construction homes on the market today do have some of these issues, and they are not blatantly obvious. And that's really what I too thought back in 2012. I thought that if there was an issue in a home, that it would be mold growing on the drywall and very obvious. But this here was the very first home that I ever purchased, a tiny little townhouse. This was the kitchen, and I purchased the home with the intention to renovate it. I had a crew that was going to go in, do new flooring, update this very dated kitchen, and I got a call right after the demo was complete because this is what was behind that cabinetry. I was blown away, and it was actually far worse than this behind this drywall. So none of this was visible. Going back here, there's no mold growing on the drywall, the tile, or even in the back of these cabinets here, but it was very apparent that there was an issue that was not addressed behind the cabinetry. And the result of that was there was a drain line that was pouring water behind the walls. So issues are not always immediately obvious. Building a home today requires a team and checks and balances. There is human error. That is a part of home construction, but we really want to catch any of those glaring issues during construction, not after. And unfortunately, following building codes are not enough. Building codes are not the gold standard. They are the minimum standard. That is the minimum legally allowable way to build a home. It is just not sufficient enough. And this completely changes the way that your architect or even your contractor are familiar with designing and building a home. Many architect and contractor build teams are familiar with following building code and relying on that local inspector. Occupant health has got to be number one. Building codes do not prioritize occupant health. They have come a long way in structural safety and energy efficiency, but occupant health does not have a code in the building code section, unfortunately. So here's what all of this means so far. Your healthy home expectations need to be communicated. And your plans and material selections need to be reflecting your goals. And this will change everything for you in the home building process, not simply just relying on your architect and your builder and thus them relying on standard building codes. So I'm going to explain why right now it might feel a little bit scary or intimidating entering into building a new home. And there's a good chance you probably feel like you just don't know what you don't know, but you really want to have a healthy home. And you may also be feeling like you just don't know who to trust or who to hire, who to really task with building your healthy home. You might even feel like everyone is brushing off your concerns. If you're bringing up topics like avoiding moldy lumber or expressing your desire possibly to not use spray foam in the construction of your home, and you may feel like you are getting gaslit or that they're just belittling your concerns. So we're going to change that. This is really unfortunate that many of those are concerns or are really feelings that you have entering into building a healthy home, because it is a big financial and emotional undertaking to be building your family home. And you really deserve a home that your family can heal and thrive in. That is what the bare minimum standard should be, is a home that is not going to be making you sick, and that you are really about to enter into a significant investment into building this home. And it's unfortunate that many of those feelings are present because you are hiring experts and they should be listening to your needs. Your architect and your builder, a licensed contractor, and you are paying them to do a job for you, and they should be listening to your concerns. You shouldn't be feeling like you need to become a contractor just to have a healthy home. That is why you are paying these experts to build this home for you. And you need to find a way to truly effectively communicate your expectations without feeling like you have to micromanage your build or renovation. You should not feel like you have to be there to be spotting any of the red flags or issues. This doesn't just mean giving a wish list over to your architect and your builder, or hiring a contractor that's familiar with healthy home building. That is not going to get you to your end result, is just kind of handing over a list and releasing the reins and telling them, go to town, build me a home. It's very, very far and few that there are knowledgeable builders that really understand healthy home building. There's over 400,000 builders in the US. Far more subcontractors. Less than 1%. Less than probably 0.5% of those builders are truly familiar with what's referred to as maybe high performance building, passive home building. These terms are often used for builders that are doing better jobs than just standard building codes. This is going to feel like finding a needle in a haystack, is finding that 1% or 0.5%. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means that the remaining 99% of builders don't really have a baseline familiarity with building far above and beyond standard building codes. And after working in the residential construction industry for over a decade, I'm a licensed contractor myself. It is that being in the industry, you see the flaws. You see what works and see what doesn't work. And after working directly with numerous architects and contractors, along with the homeowners, all collaborating together on the details and the material selections that are going to result in a healthy home. Working on homes all over the US. This is a snapshot of just the homes that we've been involved with in just the past year here. We really do at this point have a proven process that works. It is not just about material selections, and it is not just about creating healthier details. There are layers and checks and balances to building a healthy home. And so the traditional home building process looks like just go into town, building a home based off of maybe a already standardized set of plans and standard building code details that are then leading to defects. and then ultimately leading to where nobody wants to be, which is litigation and arguments and trying to get the contractor back to correct issues. This is not an enjoyable roadmap for anyone. And this is exactly what we're changing the process to be, is on the front end, is collaborating with the entire team, actually documenting expectations and what you envision in your healthy home, and then building based off of a proven process and material selections that line up with your expectations and a full set of plans that are actually documenting your expectations, because your plans are your contract. And then during the build process, there has got to be checks and balances. There has got to be third-party inspections. Otherwise, it's just guesswork and relying on that local city or county inspector to show up for 30 minutes to do an inspection. That's not sufficient enough. And then ultimately leading to a healthy home that you and your family can thrive in. And so we've had a couple interesting case studies here just recently. One being Stephanie, who is building a home in Texas. And Stephanie had prior experience with undergoing 2 previous new build instances. And both of those new builds, they had construction defects prior. And she had concerns about her build team taking her concerns seriously, because oftentimes when expressing previous issues, many times contractors and architects will share, well, this time is going to be different. And so how we made this time different was communicating in writing expectations. And one of those expectations had to do around moldy lumber. And so we were able to actually have the builder in writing share that what you see here in yellow is if lumber with visible mold is installed. We asked who would be responsible for that, and they right here shared that their firm would be responsible either internally or through the supplier or subcontractors to replace that. And so this is an example of how we were able to set those expectations specifically around the moldy lumber. Then we have Doug and Melissa in the Utah area that had a walkout subterranean basement. Melissa had SIRS, and previous homes had water damage. Also, children had illnesses. And so building a healthy home is a need. This is a need for this family. And again, documenting expectations, collaborating with the architect and both the builder, having multiple phone calls. And this was a project that needed to have robust leak prevention. That was priority number 1, details and plans, and a contractor who was willing to listen and be a part of the team. So we had many ongoing conversations with both the architect and the builder, ensuring that there was a straightforward path that, again, outlined expectations. And then we have a project here with Brad and Gina. And again, unfortunately, illness in this family from previous mold exposure. There was a previous attempt to build a healthy home that unfortunately did lead to water intrusion during the building process. So they were never actually able to complete that build. But this is a project where we were able to collaborate with their passive home architect and passive builder to design, this is what's referred to as a perfect wall system, so that all internal walls were able to be exposed. Nothing was hidden behind drywall. We had a strategy to really mitigate any potential for water damage. We were able to help assemble an entire team of the mechanical designer, leak testing, and home inspections, and many other team members to make this a successful project. So again, documenting expectations here. And then this is another case study where actually we were brought into a project during the build process. That is not ideal, because again, we want to be documenting expectations and clearly lay out the entire design development process. This is a project where we were brought in during the framing stage. So we didn't have an opportunity to dial in the details and really set expectations early on. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't make a difference here in this project. The builder really didn't take the concern around moldy lumber very serious. There were red flags happening during the build process. But once the home was what's referred to as dried in, there was windows, the exterior was on, roofing, underlayment was in. That is when we had coordinated third-party leak testing of this home before it got any further than it did. And when that occurred, what you're seeing here is that multiple leaks were detected at the roof before any of the roofing finish material went on. And so this home had multiple window leaks and multiple roof leaks that thankfully were caught during construction. Otherwise, this home would have been leaking significantly if there was no third-party leak testing in place during construction. This home would have just continued on. This home passed all inspections performed by the city. And so this is just another big glaring red flag of critical it is to have checks and balances. So we wish we were brought in earlier, but still we were able to have this leak testing performed and corrected during construction. So our unique way of coordinating and collaborating is very unique, but very effective in building a healthy home. And it is our way of being a holistic construction consultant on the project. This is not a course. What we're talking about is not a course. You don't need more information overload here. And this is also not a list of materials that we're talking about. Materials are great as a discussion, but if you cannot keep the water out of your home, that no VOC paint really isn't going to be making much of a difference. This is not feeding you more information and then you trying to repeat it or interpret it through your down to your contractor and your architect. It's going to feel like a game of telephone, and we don't want to put you in that situation with so many decisions to make already in building a home. It's actually having an advocate on your project that knows how to design and build a healthy home. That is what we're talking about. The holistic home building strategy that we use is what takes our clients from not even knowing where to start to actually being able to vet the right architects and builders, hiring a builder who is able to meet your expectations, having a solid set of plans and material selections for your unique home. This is not cookie cutter, copy and paste. And knowing that you have a highly skilled team of experts at your fingertips for anything from peer reviews, mechanical designs, leak testing experts, and more. It is our job as your advocate to collaborate with your team and bring to the table any experts that you really feel like you need in your project for it to be a success. So we've got contacts all over the US, local and remote, and we really want to help compile the best possible team for your unique project. Best part is you do not have to feel like you are just randomly throwing darts at actually building your design build team. This is a very important, selection of these team members for your build. You also don't have to know construction inside and out. That is why you are hiring experts on your team. And then you don't feel like you have to micromanage your project. You should not be the eyes and ears to spot all of the red flags during the building process of your home. And you don't have to just leave it in the hands of your builder and hope that they get it right. That is just guessing. So we really want to implement the checks and balances to give you the green light for the project to move forward. Without that, we're just hoping for the best. So you probably, have been told that to have a successful project, it's you, and then you're hiring an architect, and then you hire a contractor, and then that contractor goes to town, starts building your home. This is not supportive enough for you to be building a healthy home. There is not enough support for you to have documented evidence that your home is being built correctly and to your expectations. And so we're changing what this dynamic looks like and really supporting you with having you as a homeowner, us as a holistic consultant on your team, resources for mechanical designer that is designing the really important, this is the heating and cooling of your home. And we give you a resource for that. If you already have a mechanical designer that you absolutely love, great. We'll just have a second review of that. Again, checks and balances, making sure that nothing's getting missed that's within the expectations that you set for your project. And then peer reviews, floor plans, elevations, really the enclosure of your home. Got to have another set of eyes on that. If you feel like you need to have a construction attorney to help draft up expectations, we have a great resource for that as well. Leak testing is critical, and we help coordinate that. Wherever your project is located, we will have leak testing contacts for you there. And then home inspections. There are good reasons to have home inspections during a new build process. Documentation, verification is huge during that process. And then of course, your architect and your contractor. This is a really good example of what a solid team looks like entering into a new build process. And we help coordinate all of this for you. And so our process is not just material selections. It is not. It is really from land selection all the way through getting your new build, your healthy home built. And there's a lot of pieces along this roadmap, but it really helps you from the beginning all the way through the end there. And so a snapshot of what just the first couple of months can look like is the due diligence on the front end, planning and architect selection. Maybe you already have an architect, and that's great. We work with architects that we've never worked with before on many of our projects. And then next we want to get into the actual floor plan development and architectural details. So we have resources to help support your architect if they're not familiar with creating a robust set of plans. We want to help support them in that process so that you don't end up with a set of plans that are full of standard details that don't reflect what you're actually expecting. And then next we want to get into contractor selection and material selections and how all of this corresponds to your budget. It is not going to be very exciting if you go through the entire design development process with your architect and dial in all the details, and it goes out to bid to a contractor and it is several $100,000 or $1 million over budget. That's not going to be enjoyable. So contractor selection is very much an integral part of the design development stage so that budgets can be tempered and everything can start to align. And then from there, we want to set the expectations with third-party inspections, making your contractor aware of what those expectations are and what other team members will be involved during the build process, and project coordination. You got to get all these soldiers lined up, ready to start building. And that is why all of this detailing needs to happen before anyone starts building anything. So we want to set those expectations early. So on our end, as your holistic construction consultant, our team will help coordinate the architect and contractor resources. If you already have an architect and contractor, wonderful. We will work with them. And it is very collaborative as long as they're team players. That is all we need. And we can help guide each step from there. We want to be reviewing floor plans and what the current layout is. And if there are any potential red flags with the proposed layout, we're going to bring that to your attention. Does not mean that we're going to bulldoze the entire plan. We just want to make sure everything is a consideration to you. Have you thought about maybe moving this here so that there's less plumbing behind the walls and considerations for windows in every bathroom, and talking through the floor plan and how it's going to flow. We are directly collaborating with your architect and build team for maximum communication and efficiency. And we will oftentimes have a lot of conversations offline through email with them to help the project continue to progress forward. And then architect office hours. We want to help support your architect if there's something that they're not familiar with, or if there's something that they haven't created in the past before. So we want to help support your architect, because your architect is responsible for the details that are on your plans. And so if there's something that's unclear, we want to help get them, documenting it the correct way on their set of plans. And then high performance material selections. That's another piece to this puzzle, is your final plans and your material selections together should be making up a formal contract of, hey, Mr. Contractor, this is what we're expecting on our project. If the contractor is coming to you during construction and saying, hey, what type of insulation would you like to use? That is the wrong question to be asking. That has already been selected and detailed and designed during the design development stage. Insulation is not just a swap during construction. We have performance considerations as well. And then we want to get you an inspection checklist. There's many third-party inspections to consider. Certainly don't have to do all of them, but we want to make sure that they are all available to you to, again, make sure that you get the green lights and checks and balances that you are expecting during the build process to ensure that it's a success and that it's not just guessing. And then on-site verification and coordination for the level of detail that you want for your project. And then all of the expert resources when it comes to mechanical design, window selection, peer reviews, and more. The goal on our end is to really help support and outline and reiterate your expectations. So there's a good, better, best scenario for every single selection in the building process. That does not mean that you have to do the best of the best for everything, but it should be a conversation so that you are making decisions each step of the way that align with your goals. And as a result, you'll be building a high quality team that understands that your vision is the number one priority. And then documenting your expectations for clear communication across the entire team, because conversations that are had with the architect, how are those trickled down to your contractor and ultimately the subcontractors who are the ones swinging the hammer? That is going to feel very frustrating if it's a repeated conversation and then it ultimately gets forgotten about by the time it gets down to the subcontractor, so that it is very clear to the entire team. And then you'll also have the ability to have on-site third-party inspections so that you don't feel like, again, you have to be there with wondering if that's looking right. Is it supposed to look that way? You want to have support on site that is actually documenting and verifying work, and then alleviate the need for you to micromanage the project. As a result, you're going to feel confident in the outcome of your project. There are very few inspections according to building code that has anything to do with the leak management of your home. So beefing that up, because that should really be priority number one, is making sure the water is kept out and that on the interior side, leak management is a priority. So we want you feeling confident in the outcome. And no more just hoping for the best. No more just moving into the home and then, oh, oops, there's this big glaring issue we had no idea about. Each step of the way during construction, checks and balances and green lights to move and proceed to the next step. If this sounds like the level of support you need, this is a high level of support where we are integrated into your team. This is a full team collaborative effort. If that sounds like something that you want for your project, let's chat. I want to hear about your project. I want to learn about what your expectations are and see if we could be a good fit for working together. The best time for us to be integrated into your project is early on in your project. It is understandably very frustrating for architects or contractors if we are brought in, not necessarily to shake things up, but if we are brought in to change different expectations and possibly change the design, that's going to feel frustrating for the entire team. So the earlier, the better. And ideally, we're involved in what's referred to as the design development stage, when you are going through floor plans and finalization of that with your architect. And so we'll connect, and then we want to guide you to the next best steps. If that's involved, if that's part of our one-on-one project support, we want to share more about that with you. So we want to align the best next steps based off of your project goals. So let's chat and hear what you're expecting with this new build project. And then we can help support you in the next best step. So book a call. I'd love to chat with you, and we'll take it from there.